Good afternoon, everyone. We're studying the laws of davening, and we're in the Mishnah Berurah. We're in Kuf Ches Sif Katan Hey, and we're discussing what happens if you forget to daven Shmona Esrei. You forget to daven the 18 blessing prayer that we say on each service. So the law is that if you forgot to daven by accident, or if it was due to circumstances beyond your control, then in the next service you daven 2 Shmona Esreis. You daven twice. But if you did it on purpose, you do not daven again. So now we are learning some of those halachas, some of the details of these laws. So, Shtayim. Now what about this? We have in Shachris and Mincha, there is a repetition of the Shmona Esrei, which we don't have by Marv, that the Chazan repeats the Shmona Esrei. He says it again. Can one fulfill his obligation of Tfilas Tashlumin, of davening his second Shmona Esrei by listening to Chazaras Hashatz? So let's say he missed Shachris, and then he goes to Mincha. So instead of davening Mincha twice, can he daven Mincha with everybody, and then listen to the Chazan to fulfill his obligation of Tfilas Tashlumin? So let's see what the Mishnah Berurah says, and hey. It's not enough to fulfill your obligation with the Shliach Tzibor, with the Chazan. So you actually have to daven 2 times. You can't fulfill it by listening to Chazaras Hashatz. Because Chazaras Hashatz was only instituted for those who are not experts in davening. They can't daven themselves, so they listen to the Chazan when he repeats the Shmona Esrei. Nevertheless, b'diavad yatsa im hayazeh b'shvil hashlomis tfilas arvis ve'af al gav debesim kuvavtal kamlan dafilu b'diavad ein baki yotze b'chazaras hashas b'kol makom b'zeh shehi l'tashlumin b'shvil tfilas arvis shirishus kila. He says, however, b'diavad, if you did it already, right? So again, you're not supposed to fulfill your obligation of tfilas tashlumin through chazaras hashatz. However, if you're making up for Marav, since Marav is in general a lesser obligation in certain respects than Shachris and Mincha, so let's say you missed Marav, so you go to Shachris the next day, and you daven Shachris to fulfill your mitzvah of Shachar Shmona Esrei, and then you listen to Chazaras Hashatz to fulfill your Marav that you missed last night. So in that case, you fulfill your obligation for Tashlumin for Marav with the Chazaras Hashatz of Shachris, since Marav is in general a lesser obligation. However, one should still not do this lechatchila. He should still not do this initially. The best thing to do is to daven 2 Shmona Esreis. Okay. And we said that when a person davens 2 Shmona Esreis, so let's say you forgot Shachris, so you're going to daven 2 Minchas. We said that the first Shmona Esrei you daven has to be for Mincha, and the second Shmona Esrei is to make up for Shachris. Harishona Mincha ki tzarich lahaktim tefillah shehichova sha l'tfilas hatashlumin. Okay. Vim hipech. Let's say you switched. Let's say you didn't know this halacha, or you forgot. You get to davening Mincha, you forgot Shachris, and first you daven your Shmona Esrei for Shachris, and then you daven for Mincha. What do you do then? So the Shulchan Aruch said that you did not fulfill your obligation for your Tfilas Tashlumin, and you have to go and daven again. Let's see what the Mishnah Berurah says. Perish shahaisa b'daito shetehei harishona letashlumin lo yatsa. If your intent was that the first Shmona Esrei should be for Tashlumin, you did not fulfill your obligation. Delo tiknu rabbanan hashlama ela bizman his askus b'tfila chiyuvis v'lo kodem lechein. Because the way the rabbis set up this law is that your Tfilas Tashlumin has to be at the time when you're davening a required Shmona Esrei. So first you have to daven Mincha, which is a required Shmona Esrei, your regular chiyuv of that day, and then you only daven the Tashlumin, because the Tashlumin has to be said at a time of davening. And if you daven Tashlumin first, it wasn't yet a time of davening, so you didn't fulfill your obligation. There are those that take issue with this. Some argue and say that no, even if you davened the first one as a tfilas tashlumin, you still don't have to go back unless you explicitly said that it's a tashlumin. What's an example of this? Ukigon shehu motzi Shabbos. Let's say it's motzi Shabbos. So you forgot Shabbos mincha, so now you're davening motzi Shabbos Saturday night 2 marivs. V'hivdil b'shniya. So, and what did you do? You said the Havdalah that we say in Atachonen Tana, you said in the second Shmona Esrei, as opposed to the first Shmona Esrei. You should have said it in the first Shmona Esrei, which is the obligatory Mar of Shmona Esrei. But you said it in the second because you thought the first one would be Tashlumin. So you didn't say it there because you thought the first Shmona Esrei was to make up for the Mincha on Shabbos that you missed. So there are those that say that only in that case, when you explicitly, you did something unique in the Shmona Esrei to indicate that it was for a Tashlumin, like that example where the first Shmona Esrei you did not say Havdalah, and the second Shmona Esrei you did say Havdalah, so that indicates that your first Shmona Esrei was a Tashlumin. So some say that only in that case you have to go back and daven again. But in a regular case of during the week, where you just, in your head, you didn't do anything different in the Shmona Esrei, just in your head you thought that the first one is Tashlumin and the second one is the Chiyuv. So in that case, you would not have to go back. So that opinion argues with the Shulchan Aruch, because the Shulchan Aruch says you always have to go back. So what do we do practically? What's the practical halacha? Ule'inyan dina, the halacha is because of a pri chadash or a pri begadim, she'ein lanu ela divrei mechaber. We go with the Shulchan Aruch. V'chein hitik haderech hachaim la'halacha. That's what the derech hachaim says. U'mikom bag. Nevertheless, tov yoser shebe'eish shechozer mispalel yasne ve'omer. Im eini mechuyev li'ispalel pam shniya shenis ani mispalel oso betoras nedava. So you should do this. This is the concept we've discussed many times. Since there's opinions that say that if you daven the first Shmona Esrei as a Tashlumin, you do not have to go back. So what you should do is the following. So again, what's the case? You forgot Shachris. So comes Mincha, and you mistakenly, you need to daven 2 Shmona Esreis, but by mistake, the first Shmona Esrei you davened was to make up for Shachris, and the second Shmona Esrei was for Mincha. So what do? So the final halacha is like this. You have to daven again for Shachris, but you say in your head, if I'm required to daven, this is the Shmona Esrei that makes up for Shachris. If I'm not required to daven, this is a voluntary Shmona Esrei, this is a Tfilas Nadava, and that's that trick, the Tanai that we can make, the condition that we can make many times when we're not sure if we have to daven again. Okay, so we learned that when a person forgets to daven Shmona Esrei, the next service he davens 2 Shmona Esreis. The first one is for the obligation then. The second one is to make up for what he missed. And we also said that a person should not fulfill his obligation of a make-up Shmona Esrei by listening to the repetition of the Chazan. However, if he did it at Shacharis, for making up for a Mar if he missed, then b'di'evet it is okay. Okay, a lot of details there, and if anyone wants to call me or text me, discuss this further, please feel free.